Do you have a cutting edge idea that you're excited about getting started with? For many of you that have deep tech ideas, creating that initial proof of concept can be an overwhelming challenge. And as you know, innovation in itself is not enough to start a successful small business. And so turning an idea into a product usually encounter issues like lack of funding, very strict rules on getting your products out there, and limited early support. So the U.S. federal government saw this as a challenge many years ago, so they introduced two programs, the Small Business Innovation Research Program, or known as the SBIR program, and also the Small Business Technology Transfer Program, also known as the STTR program. And the goal of these programs is to close the gap between the science and the business. So small businesses can receive structured funding from one of the federal agencies. Examples include National Science Foundation, the National Institutes of Health, the Department of Energy, and there's many other federal agencies that offer grants that are known as SBIR and STTR grants. Because of the contribution to developing new ideas and backing small businesses, these programs are known as America's Seed Fund. So the SBIR and STTR programs are federal initiatives designed to stimulate technological innovation and support small businesses in performing research and development activities. The goal of these programs is, there's several reasons for them. The goal is to meet specific research needs of federal agencies and to support the commercialization efforts that drive economic growth. Companies that typically get funded through these programs are often too early stage for investors. So these companies are kind of living in a gap that they're looking to create a minimum viable product to show investors or to show others, but they don't have the funding to do so. So the SBIR program actually started in 1982. It was created to support new technologies, to address research and development requirements of federal agencies. For example, the Department of Defense, they often have requirements that can't be fulfilled by any commercial company because they often need products that are not made or they need it specialized in a certain way. Also, the Small Business Technology Transfer Program, STTR, was introduced a little bit later in 1992, and it has the same main mission. Although both SBIR and STTR promote tech research and bring those products to the commercial market, they stand out. There's a few main differences. Under STTR, small businesses must team up formally with a nonprofit research institution. They most commonly team up with a university, but they could also team up with a federal laboratory, and they could work together with them to utilize their facilities, their skill sets, and other resources as part of the research toward developing their commercial product. So the SBIR and STTR programs are very competitive, and they're structured into three phases. Phase one is the development of a minimum viable product. And that's usually enough to demonstrate that the technology is going to work as originally proposed. Phase two supports the full research and development and developing that prototype more towards a commercial product. Depending on what is in development, phase two sometimes is not enough, though, to fully develop that all the way into a commercialized product. Phase three moves towards commercialization, but many times in that phase, you're actually being supported by investors, so not necessarily the federal agencies any longer. So the key objectives of the SBIR and STTR programs are to stimulate technological innovation. It's also to strengthen the role of small businesses in meeting federal research and development needs. These programs also want to encourage participation and innovation by socially and economically disadvantaged persons and also women-owned small businesses. And they also seek to foster technology transfer through cooperative R&D between small businesses and research institutions like universities. The Small Business Innovation Research Transfer, SBIR and STTR programs are considered small business set-asides by the federal government, meaning that a portion of federal research and development funds are exclusively reserved for small businesses, because a large amount of funding goes towards universities and colleges and etc. So this program is specifically for-profit small businesses. So the origins of the SBIR program trace back to the 1970s. This was a period where there was a growing concern over the U.S. competitiveness in the global economy. And evidence began to show that small businesses played a vital and increasing role in innovation and job creation. And I think today that's even more relevant. They seem to be providing a very large amount of research and development, which is why larger companies have a tendency to buy up startups. During the time in the 1970s, there was a key figure named Roland Tibbets, and he's often recognized as the father of the SBIR program. He was appointed the senior program officer at the National Science Foundation in 1972, and Tibbets had experience in both small and large businesses and understood the unique challenges of small and startup businesses, and knew that they had a lack of funding, and there was a gap there where they could either thrive or succeed in the market. At around the same time, Senator Edward Kennedy was the chairman of the NSF subcommittee under the Senate Labor and Public Welfare Committee, and he advocated for expanding small business funding. So this collaboration led to the creation of the SBIR program, which began as the NSF SBIR in 1977. In 1982, the Small Business Innovation Development Act formally established the SBIR program across multiple federal agencies. In 1992, the program was reauthorized through the Small Business Research and Development Enhancement Act, and it emphasized the importance of commercialization as a grant selection criterion. In the year 2000, it was also reauthorized through the Small Business Innovation Research Program Reauthorization Act until 2009. In 2011, after several short-term extensions, it was reauthorized by the 2012 Defense Authorization Act. And then just again, about a month ago, it was reauthorized for the next 5 years to continue funding small businesses. The SBIR and STTR programs have many similarities, and myself as a reviewer for NSF, they're evaluated in a very similar manner. But entrepreneurs must understand the differences when deciding which one will fit them best with their project and their organizational structure. When your project uses inventions or research facilities that's available through a university, it may be best to participate in the STTR program, but however, you need to have a certain percentage of the budget allocated to that university in order to be considered STTR. And for most programs, that's 33.3% of the total budget of your grant that goes to the university. If you could still have a university participate on your project and only allocate a smaller percentage, but then that would still fall under the SBIR program instead of STTR. Sometimes, if your program does fall under STTR, there's less of those proposal applications that go to the federal agencies, so your chance of success may increase slightly with the STTR program. A common issue for entrepreneurs is what's called the valley of death, which appears between the birth of a business idea and the successful delivery of a product or service to the customers. At these times, often federal funding is required, but sometimes federal or state funding falls short, which can hold back a prototype from being developed or other advancements that are required during the development of a cutting-edge technology. So the SBIR and STTR programs are designed to bridge this gap by offering early-stage capital. Seed funding might be needed to, build your minimum viable product and support your future development and growth by showing the promise of that minimum viable product. Winning these SBIR grants or STTR grants helps to enhance credibility. If you're funded by a federal agency, it shows to investors, business partners, and customers that your product is worth supporting. It's met the vetting standards and the rigorous criteria of a federal agency. Also, obtaining non-dilutive funding, you'll retain your intellectual property. There could be times where your intellectual property might be negotiable with venture capital, which could potentially mean losing ownership and intellectual property rights. So non-dilutive funding doesn't require you to give anything up from the recipients. And these grants offer many pathways to further opportunities, especially agencies like the National Institutes of Health. They attract further funding from the private sector, from other government grants and agencies. Often there's follow-on funding, phase 2, phase 2B, for example. So as a result, the SBIR and STTR programs support the United States to reach important goals by supporting growth in healthcare, clean power, improving national defense, and novel technologies. So they play a key part in solving the country's most critical problems and encouraging growth in the state of the art in major scientific fields. The SBIR and STTR programs have opened countless doors for small businesses. They offer billions of dollars in non-dilutive funding to support innovation. However, despite their widespread availability and impactful results, there are many misconceptions that are in industry, especially those that might be from academic or early stage startup backgrounds. So the first misconception is that university involvement does not automatically make the grant an STTR instead of an SBIR. Many people wrongly believe that a university partnership automatically means you're applying for an STTR, but that's incorrect. In the STTR program, a small business can join forces with a nonprofit research organization, such as a university, but it's optional for businesses taking part in the SBIR program. So if you're applying for SBIR, you can still team with the university. It's just the budget has to use a less of 1/3 for the university. Other flawed beliefs include if the intellectual property comes from a university, you must apply through STTR. Or if the inventor or key scientist is faculty, you must use STTR. That's not necessarily true. If the principal investigator is based at the university, the award is considered the university's grant. So these are all, again, untrue. So the applicant must be a for-profit small business, and the award goes to that business entity. So I've actually helped university professors that started their own startup businesses to obtain SBIRs, and then eventually they broke away from the university and worked on their business full time. So there's also a mistaken belief that every element of an STTR project can be done by the university alone. So the clarification between how the project is going to work between the company and the university has to be, clearly elucidated before the grant's submitted, and then throughout the program as well. So, but for STTR, the small business usually works on at least 66% of the overall project for phase 1. For phase 2, they could handle 50%. So how you divvy up the exact percentages is based upon the actual product and the scope of work that you agree on. The SBIR and STTR are both federal efforts intended to give support to small businesses by funding high-risk research projects that have hope for commercial success. So they have over time adjusted to economic and technological changes, and they also seek to include small businesses that are disadvantaged or women-owned. So SBIR grants let you set up your company's team however makes the most sense for your business. But STTR-backed projects require cooperation between the small business and the research team at the university or other research organization. Thanks to the large amount of federal money each year, these programs drive innovation, they help create new areas of business, and they allow small startups to meet national demands for energy, defense, health, and green energy, as well as many other industries and needs.